Oh yeah,
Wow,
she
what
also
a cool
sucked.
afterthought.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Afterburners, your necessary side supplement to the afterthoughts. Today, we got episode 14 for you, ecosystems. Alex, you want to go ahead and take it away? Kind of give us a little introduction and what we'll be talking about.
Absolutely. So yeah, we're going to be talking about ecosystems, which is again a very, very vast subject, encompassing many, many things. I'm going to start off with okay, well, what is ecology, right? What is this thing? Ecology and ecosystems under ecology. So if I could condense it into like some idea, I think the best way to say it would be it's kind of the study of relationships in a general sense. Um, so I would say kind of formal ecology really starts when you start seeing relationships just instead of um, single finite moments. So like you can pay attention to an organism, you can pay attention to other organisms, but it's really how those relations of the larger system operate. So that's kind of like what I think of like when I think of a formal ecology, is kind of a study of how interactions are mapped, kind of.
Yeah.
Yeah, this is kind of general starter synopsis. We can get more into formal definitions later, but yeah, just start off there.
Yeah. I like how it is a very like broad spectrum, even though it's like a higher system, because there's all these different types of ecology and relationships within, these environments. You've got like the relationships between like, the two animals that like help each other or coexist. There's animals that provide habitat or shelter or protection for other animals. There's the food chain and all sorts of stuff. It's a very interesting and just cool in general, just how diverse that all gets.
Absolutely. You're very right to point out the versatility and the dynamics of the whole study of ecology. And yeah, so when we're talking about ecology, we have a plethora of like kind of terminologies and like what we're trying to look for, and trying to understand and map ecosystems and environment. And so yeah, I would also say this kind of personally like I have my own personal feelings about ecology and ecosystems in general. But I would say it's kind of one of those fields that everybody could do better by understanding, sort of, because, well, you're an organism and you exist within an environment. So
Right.
it'd be good to understand maybe how to navigate that environment because, again, with your understanding of like yourself and the greater whole, it gives you a lot of insight into how to maybe navigate such things or what to expect in an environment.
Because the environment shapes you and it also gives you all sorts of stimulus in order to read the environment you're in and how to navigate that if there are any potential challenges.
Yeah. One thing we haven't really gotten into quite yet is just the aspect of like energy within a given ecosystem.
Oh, yeah.
We kind of did a little bit, but whenever we're talking about an ecosystem, we're often talking about how there's sort of energy flows or what we call energy cycles or energy circulations, um, because there's a lot of like recycling energy. So yeah, we absorb and emit, and there's a lot of back and forth between animals and the ecosystem. Another cool terminology that I might want to talk about right now is just kind of biotic versus abiotic. So this is kind of cool. Biotic interactions.
Real quick, I just wanted real quickly to ask, what kind of energy are you talking about?
Oh, when I'm just speaking about energy, I just kind of mean like food or nutrients most times. So
Okay,
like
okay.
in order to utilize energy, and do a number of things with that energy. But basically, if you're a living being in the ecosystem, you're probably going to be using energy in some way, shape, or form.
Yeah,
Um,
absolutely.
so yeah, uh, but yeah, energy kind of circulates through this ecosystem. So it's not like a closed system. It's not isolated. So there's a lot of interaction happening.
Mhm.
Um, but yeah, so biotic versus abiotic interactions. So biotic sort of means between organisms. So that just kind of means there's an organism and there's another organism and there's interactions happening between these two.
Right. Okay.
Pretty basic. Abiotic just simply means an interaction with something that is not living. So that is more involved with just like resources within the environment. So that would maybe be like water or like sticks or rocks or if you need some
Right.
sort of resource, right?
So
Um,
would a tree fall under that, or would it not because it's living? You did mention stick, which dead part.
yeah, because you're getting philosophical now. So on one side, you could be like, well, it's a living thing, and the other side, well, it is kind of a,
Because
if you really do want to, you could say, yeah, it's just a living thing. So
I
maybe a
just
rock would
mean
be a
the
better
right.
representation.
I just mean the prime example with that would be beavers.
Right, right.
Basically,
So yeah, this overlap of interpretation in determining something as living or abiotic, right?
Okay.
So yeah, um, like is a virus living? I don't know.
So it's not like
Um,
a definite this is yes for a abiotic relationship. It's more of a kind of a general term of just like how
yeah, it's
yeah,
a way to
okay,
identify something.
okay,
Um,
okay.
symbiotic interactions include two organisms in symbiosis, and that would be a biotic interaction versus getting water from the stream. That's like an abiotic. So yeah, um, cool stuff. Um, so yeah, basically to wrap back around, it's just kind of the study of relationships and energy kind of flows and cycles within an ecosystem. Um, and again, the better you can sort of model or map and find maybe the constraints of the ecosystem, you can do a lot of things with the understanding of all that and how to navigate it better. Even so, yeah. Um, any other questions? Should we move on from here, or should we go
I
into kind
think
of the
you
next?
did a great job explaining it. So yeah, keep going, man.
Sure. So, um, absolutely. So I'll kind of get into a little bit of like uh, the early ideas of ecology. So I was kind of looking into this. Aristotle had a. It wasn't really ecology. It was more like a rough. He was trying to like map out organisms and that kind of thing. But it's really again when you start to understand how the organism relates to the greater ecosystem is when you start to really get more of a formal ecology. But he was thinking kind of along those lines too. So again, uh, sort of Aristotelian age. Um, is kind of when these rudimentary ideas of like how to map or understand organisms and their nature started to begin. But it wasn't really until in the 1800s where this guy named Ernst Haeckel um, sort of, yeah, he sort of found a good way of representing the relationships of organisms and kind of made a good a good metric for people to use. And so he kind of coined the term ecology, I think, in the original and it comes from oikos, which is a Greek term. It means house, so it's kind of the study of like homes or houses or domicile
I thought it meant
environment.
yogurt.
What?
I thought it meant yogurt. Isn't there a
Yogurt?
yogurt called oikos?
There might be. I don't know. I just know that oikos is the original Greek terminology, and it evolved into ecology and ecosystem. But
Okay.
yeah, might be some yogurt. Anyway, so but yeah, Ernst Haeckel, he was kind of cool. So he was born in 1834 and died in 1919. He was kind of originated from Germany. He was really into all sorts of stuff. Um, kind of a philosopher. He was really into Darwin theory. So he was already thinking along terms of like evolution and that sort of thing. Um, so yeah, let's see here. There's of course a lot of other people that were very core in the development of ecology as like a system. So one major contingency was Alexander von Humboldt. He came kind of after Haeckel a little bit, and yeah, he was kind of more interested in like climate and geography and like maybe more expanded biospheres um, and biomes. Um, so yeah, that was kind of he was again seeing how the interconnectedness of a system operates. And then of course we have Arthur Tansley, who really uh, talked more about the actual ecosystem. He sort of solidified the word ecosystem. And he kind of brought this idea that you can't separate organisms from their environment, really. So I like that idea where it's like there's a certain interconnectedness that you just can't avoid. And I think it's huge for the study of ecology as a whole. Um, just gives a lot of insight into that kind of thing. And then one last person I wanted to talk briefly about was Raymond Lindman. He kind of had the more traditional energy flows and mapping of this of um, pyramid pyramid type of scheme, where yeah you had basically you had your sun, your plants, herbivores, carnivores, and decomposers, where it's a large kind of cycle, um, primary energy, and then plants absorb that, herbivores eat that, carnivores eat herbivores, and then decomposers decompose, and then the cycle starts anew essentially. So he was really big into how energy kind of moves through the system. Again, very important to kind of understand. Um, so yeah, those are kind of some of the main people that sort of yeah had really mapped out the landscape for modern ecology, I'd say, and explain a lot of um, how modern ecologies are sort of derived in their architecture. So yeah, um, any more things you want to ask or at this moment, or
Uh,
um,
Other than in the kind of like line of things in ecology, decomposers and detrivores and scavengers are like just my favorite part. I just think it's cool
yeah,
how
they're
they.
kind of like the last in the energy system.
Mhm.
It's pretty cool to think about. Absolutely.
They like recycle it. It like returns it like truly to nature. Like, you know, how like a dead thing will, you know, either be eaten or eventually will decompose.
Yeah,
I mean, skeleton will
absolutely.
remain for a while, but hey, Fox, what? Don't scratch my chair. What the hell, man?
Okay. Cool. Yeah. So maybe I would get a little bit more into maybe some different terminologies, um, just to kind of get more of the handle of like um, what we're sort of looking for when we're thinking of or when we're mapping a model of an ecosystem. One thing of obviously is really considering the constraints. So sort of mapping out, okay, what are we constrained by, and we're also interested in thresholds, of course, finding how feedback. So we have this like signal, and we call it like often feedback signal or feedback loops. So they often incorporate sort of two different kind of potential energetic types. And one would be like a stabilizing feedback loop where uh, your energy is um, it's being cleanly and efficiently sort of flowing through the system. And then you sort of have amplifying feedback loops, which destabilize elements within the system at large. Um, so it's good information to see what a healthy to sort of determine what a healthy interaction looks like. You can classify stabilizing interaction, you can classify amplifying interaction, and sort of ask the question, well, is it stabilizing or is it amplifying? And if it's amplifying, how do we how does that disturb or influence the greater ecology? Um, and here's the other cool thing that I wanted to present just briefly here. I think it's kind of worth noting. You remember talking about like entropy as like a concept and how like stuff kind of disperses or becomes more
Yeah,
chaotic if just
yeah,
left. Um, and again, this opposing force to entropy is order, where we have like destability, and then we have like humans and other things that wish to order systems. Um, so I thought this was kind of relevant because um, I would say that life seeks coherence. Might be a bold claim, but pretty much all the cells and all the interacting parts within a given organism or suborganisms are trying to cohere, is the best word I would say. On a very primitive level, things are trying to cohere. Um, so I kind of see it as almost this dance between this desire to seek stability and coherence and this destabilizing chaotic force. And that's kind of the age old argument of life. Um, that was kind of cool to think about. So, yeah. Maybe a couple more terminologies real quick. Again, we talked about energy flow. That's just kind of mapping how energy flows through a system, circulating. Nutrient cycling, it's called as well, because it's energy is nutrients, nutrients is energy um, in a different form. We can talk about ecology stability and resilience, where if you do have destabilizing interactions, how well can the ecosystem bounce back and regenerate? That's another sort of metric. Um, and then, yeah, I just wanted to mention briefly biomes because a biome is just sort of a traditional classical way of seeing an environment. Um, and then the
Minecraft.
biosphere, yeah, exactly. And the biosphere is like a larger environment, like the world, and you can think of it as the world, a large environment. So, um, yeah, those are the main points I think about typical terminologies within ecology. I'm sure there's more, uh, but a lot of people talk about these kind of things. Maybe one thing to sort of know about the sort of globalness of ecology is that there's quite a few subfields that come out of ecology, I think. So that would be climate modeling, I think. There's complexity science, kind of measuring complexity. There's systems theory science, and it kind of even delves into like information theory, even uh, human ecology and all that thing. Even economics, yeah, economics are part of ecology. So again, there's a lot of sub branches to ecology. I think it's all super fantastic stuff. So, any other questions at the moment? I could go on a little bit more, but we went through quite a few of the big points, I think,
Oh yeah,
already.
yeah. I mean, was there anything in particular that you have talked about that you maybe wanted to delve a little bit more into before you move on?
Not really. I would just say at the core of it, the things of importance are there's energy. There's many different kinds of energy, and they're flowing through the system. There's there's the organisms and the populace within a given ecosystem, and then there's the ecosystem at large. So that's the environment. And if you have these kind of three core concepts, there's I think that's a lot of what is involved. And again, it's not just looking at one organism, but maybe trying to see how that organism interacts at large. So not incorporating just one variable, but two variables most times. But there's still more to it. There's still plenty.
Well, I mean, we still have like under 40 minutes left.
Okay.
So,
I could
I mean,
maybe riff. I mean,
what?
I could riff a little bit if you want, but
Riff away, my friend. Go for it.
sure. Um, so yeah, I'll just kind of go back over again, sort of the Ernst Haeckel, because he's the guy who sort of talked about ecology, and he talked about the oikos, um, ecology from Germany. He was actually a trained medical doctor, but he hated practicing clinical medicine. It's kind of funny. He was really big historian, marine biology, into philosophy, and again Darwin's theory of evolution. I think that was kind of cool. But yeah, very philosophical. I think I can relate to appreciate and admire the guy at large. So yeah, sorry, just thinking for a minute.
No, you're all good.
I wanted to, yeah, this is my notes. Ernest Haeckel was a biologist who kind of gave the ecology its name in the 19th century. Um, but the ideas behind ecology go back to kind of Aristotle because he was kind of like into the whole organism type stuff. But
Right.
it really was that more larger branching from Haeckel, I think, that really solidified the science of ecology. But I also really love Aristotle too, and I think it's worth thinking about. I could also talk a little bit about okay, so there's sub branches of ecology. Um, one that people talk a lot about is population ecology. So it's involving birth rates, death rates, looking at populaces, kind of that kind of thing. And then there's community ecology, which is talking about different variation of species. So you can imagine population ecology and community ecology kind of go together. Um, yeah, large populace trying to map uh, each community in their own right. You also have landscape ecology, which is again talking more about those large scale sort of things, a lot of geometry and architecture in that sense. And then you have systems ecology, which is more theoretical in nature. So you have, I guess, the original biological sort of ecology, and then you have sort of theoretical or conceptual ecology, where instead of organisms, you could have agents or digital nodes within the system. Those are just a couple subcategories. again, to sort of reiterate, it's a large field. We
Oh yeah,
haven't talked about all the subfields. You know,
barely
it's
scratched the surface, tip of the
but yeah,
iceberg.
that's
Earlier,
basically it.
you were talking about like possible disruptions to an ecosystem. It wasn't accelerate, but amplify. Yeah, amplify and stuff. Did you want to maybe go into that a bit more and give some
Sure,
maybe like examples?
sure. So if we're going into like a specific interaction, again, we have different kind of feedback. So we have the amplifying feedback, which is destabilizing in nature, and then we have the stabilizing feedback, which is the healthier sort of thing. Um, and I would say to this notion, you do have to be thinking maybe a little bit about the amplifying feedback because it's uh, in order to predict the potential fallout of amplifying feedback, you have to kind of look at the larger system and say, okay, if there's a node here deep low in the you think like a tree, you start from the root and you build up. Um, so if some part of the tree at the very low base is weakened, the probability of the tree tipping over in from a destabilizing force would be high. And if you're seeking the tree to be stable as the larger ecosystem, you really want to reinforce this weak point, this destabilizing or amplifying feedback loop point. And it's just basic architecture at that point where it's like, okay, from first principles, you have to build from the ground up, typically speaking. And as you move up the chain, those low level decisions matter quite a fair amount um, as the um, as the overall sort of ecosystem is determined by those individual lower units. So if you have enough individual lower units that are amplifying, the whole system structure is going to be kaput. So that's why when we talk about system stability, it's good to be in alignment with trying to stabilize the system and add coherence rather than trying to decohere the system. In the best sort of terminology usable, I think, at the moment. Yeah, I mean, it's really important sort of inquiry you ask because it's like, yeah, what happens when there's enough destabilizing feedback, and to answer that, it extrapolates, you know. So yeah, it's something to consider. Yeah.
I think a lot of the ecology we've been talking about is in nature. Did you want to maybe talk a bit more about social ecology?
Oh, sure. Yeah. 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 Social ecology or information ecology. This idea that if you just kind of apply ecology to more sociology and personality interactions, again, you can try to map the organism as a human or as another being that communicates, um, and you can try to see uh, predictive behavior. So you're trying to model behavior in some sense and predict biotic versus abiotic interactions. So you can see the abiotic interactions that the human organism does, as an individual, but also as a populace. So if you do look at the populace scale, it gives you a lot more data. That's kind of cool to understand too. Is that's the really cool thing I think I really like about ecology is that you're basically able to think more isomorphically, in the sense that if you can see what a populace does in their behavior, you can understand a lot about the individual behavior of an organism. Um, so it gives a lot of insight into um, organism behavior at large. Um, anyhow, really cool stuff. Um, but yeah, what were we talking about? That was
Social
mostly.
social ecology,
Oh yeah,
or
social
what
ecology.
what would be some maybe like amplifying
Oh
destabilizing
yeah,
forces?
so social economy, amplifying or stabilizing. Some examples of like feedback signal. So we're talking about signals. It would sort of be, well, you can have the goal of destabilizing or amplifying the individual person for personal gain. That's not. I wouldn't recommend that, right? But
Right.
you could seek stability. Of course, there's an element of freedom of will here because each organism has their freedom of will. Yeah, I guess it's kind of representative of like how much impact we can have in our vocal or social economy if somebody presents a lot of perhaps effective communication. They could rise up, or a lot of transparency. They could rise up the social ladder. So again, there's even a social hierarchy involved within a social economy.
Oh yeah.
And so you can, how do I optimize? How does one optimize to maximize their social reputation or standing within a larger social ecosystem? Which is a really good question to ask. Yeah, it's I would say people like, generally speaking, those that can cohere and find stability rather than those who present more instability or erratic sort of energy patterns, turbulent energy patterns. So I think we see that very deeply. And ultimately, I think a lot of humans, we have this desire for coherence. I think all life has a desire for coherence. And a life seeking decoherence sort of means that I personally think there's something fundamentally wrong in that representation. If there's an organism that seeks to decohere, I think, well, for survival reasons, I suppose there's that, but it just seems kind of out of what life kind of represents symbolically. If I were to add a symbolic um, mapping to it, at the end of the day, the ecosystem kind of desires, as a whole, the ecosystem sort of wants to be stable. I mean, even if we the organisms, don't necessarily, we have our own sort of will and desires and thoughts about ourselves and the ecosystem. But the ecosystem itself originally is quite stable for millions of years of evolution. So, and of course, there's adaptation. Ecosystems evolve, and it's like a living type of thing too. So, you measure it 1 minute and it's one way, and you measure it the next minute and it's a different way. So, um, it's always good to keep that in your mind to like update your information, be more refined.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Because if you don't have the good information, you could get completely shafted by the environment.
absolutely. Yeah.
You know.
Yeah, we kind of trust our systems, or we trust our senses enough, and we trust our systems that we say, oh, I can avoid certain potholes if I'm smart, if I can have foresight, if I can have insight towards
Take water with
towards
you into the desert. Take
yeah,
food with you when you cross the ocean.
yeah, you're thinking ahead, right? Because it's like,
Exactly.
and maybe just part of this ecology thing is just kind of thinking ahead in general. Because you're trying to incorporate, well, how do I navigate, and how does how do we optimize or navigate this energy flow? It kind of, at the end of this, I guess it's kind of about being more integrated with the overall system. If you're less integrated, it becomes hard to exist in your environment, and who wants that, right? It's not good for anybody. So maybe part of this philosophy is also sort of asking how to live well. If you want to kind of live well, look at nature and see what it's trying to ask of the organisms. Maybe I would say there's a sort of perceived direction to stability that the environment shows if you look close enough. Um, and it's about, do you want to preserve that stability, or are you a destabilizing agent? Kind of the ultimate question. Um, so it's kind of almost a question of morality and philosophy too at some point. Um, it's just such a big field, right? So ecology, worth thinking about.
Another thing I have on my notes is the whole idea of conservation and habitat destruction, and how that's both good conversation for ecosystems, and how habitat destruction disrupts those ecosystems.
Absolutely. Talk about a destabilizing force.
Right.
Yeah. Because again, we don't always have perfect insight or foresight into what the amplifying feedback effects could be if we only know a stable environment.
Which is,
and so
it's weird if you think about it, because it's like we're the species that can think ahead, yet we're the ones causing the most disruption to ecosystems. It's kind of ironic,
yeah, it
really.
kind of makes you know how really smart
You've
we
got these
are.
animals that, compared to us, I guess you could consider, in a sense, mindless, and their ecosystems are perfectly stable without any sort of human intervention.
Yeah, yeah, we've done a bang up job of being an organism. We've been very
We have done fucked
stabilizing.
up royally.
But on the contrary, we've done a lot of ingenuity and technology.
Oh yeah,
So yeah, there's benefits, just like.
right.
But
Like I
yeah,
said,
like
observations.
you look at the global environment, like, oh, okay, humans, well, we gotta think about this a little bit. We should have more ecologists. I think. Yeah, there's not enough ecologists. We need to be more concerned uh, with our environment. And you can have low level and high level ecology too. And when I say low level or high level, you're changing your perspective. So your immediate environment, your internal management, even your relationships, all these kind of things. But you could zoom out too. You could say the high level understanding of the global thing that matters too. Um, so yeah, absolutely. So yeah. We don't really know what would happen a lot of times when we have enough amplifying feedback, and it's spooky to think about. So um, I think any sort of efforts to revitalize and further understand and further heal, for lack of better terms, heal the ecology. I think that's always a good pursuit. Um, but I think that kind of goes along with understanding the behaviors and ultimately what the organism needs and requires and what it can do, um, and how to find coherence and stability within a chaotic environment, you could say. Yeah, worthwhile pursuit. We're very worthwhile pursuit. I just wanted to go over slightly modeling. I know I kind of mentioned it, but modeling is a very good tool for ecologists as we can get a lot of good data in a given environment. So, yeah.
She's
Yeah,
too distracting. Sorry.
you're good, man.
Have you also heard about like uh I think it's this like new plant, or might be a type of animal. I don't know, but it's starting to show that it can like eat plastic because of
Oh,
like the amount of litter and stuff that there is.
I think I know what you're talking about. There was a I don't remember the exact study, but there was a group of researchers I think that were trying to develop a organism, a small cellular organism that could potentially biodegrade plastic,
Oh,
or something of the
we're
sort.
gonna make it.
Yeah, so it's kind of like the whole scientific pursuit. Yeah, trying to see if they can construct or find an organism um, that can replicate that sort of um, decomposing of plastic sort of thing. I think they had some success in that. Um, I don't know. I remember this. Yeah, this was talked about like a while ago, um, or like a couple
Well,
years ago or something.
I mean, it would have to be something that could like. I would guess in terms of how it would eat its food, it would have to use some sort of acid to break the plastic down. But then the real question is like, what nutrients does it gain from the plastic? If we eat plastic, you're just going to get really sick, and and it's definitely
Yeah,
interesting to
yeah,
think about, and definitely would make sense why it would take some time and a lot of research to figure that out.
right. Yeah, yeah. It's cool fields of science. Yeah, I believe it was okay. I just looked it up. It was like a 2016 study, a bacterium called Idonella sakiensis. Sakiensis.
100%.
Sakiensis.
Yep.
It can decompose like plastics. Um, there was some uh, limited output. Um,
Do,
it
do
just I think the works very slowly, so the scalability might be difficult. But I mean, it's kind of hopeful though. I mean, yeah, this would be very up the alley of ecology because it's again trying to fix the environment for organisms to live in. So yeah,
Mother
um,
Nature fighting back?
you know, yeah, I suppose it's also my hope. Um, I feel like it's an ongoing joke to talk about AI technology, but I have to do it.
Every
So,
at some point, it comes up. It comes up.
but on that note, I think hopefully future intelligent models can help us to navigate our greater ecosystems more effectively, more efficiently, and with greater insight and knowledge. I almost see it as like a secondary set of eyes or a second brain or entity to basically help dissect things for you, help to iterate and help to create new solutions towards doing that kind of thing. So, but yeah, it's very like a hopeful idea that maybe you could sort of begin the parallel process if you had robotic agents being able to implement something like this cell of microorganisms. You could imagine some future scenario where you could have quite a few autonomous agentic robots out there in the field that were deploying large sacks of these microorganisms that can decompose plastics into like the ocean where there's tons of plastic. That'd be kind of cool. Um, but again, with
Uh,
sort of this idea of parallel processing, you can do a lot of stuff, energetic work with just basic principles. I think.
you said agentic. That is a word I have not heard. Is that like to have agency or something?
Yeah, agents sort of, an agent is just a sort of entity being that exists and that can sort of, and it's assuming a couple things. You can interpret, you can make decisions, so you have
Right.
influence.
Okay.
It sort of means that you have some continuity through time, I think. So like as time flows, there's a present agent that can make decisions within the flow of time, as opposed to a static being that would just be at one time frame and then another time frame. It's a consistent being.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Okay. I just haven't heard it used in that way before. Kudos. Kudos.
And we're all so, cool. Yeah.
Indeed. All right. You want to go ahead and end this with a bit of talking about just like life in general, dealing with ecosystems in about 10 minutes.
Sure. Yeah, no problem. Yeah, it's been fun, to talk about this kind of stuff, and I'm sure we again missed quite a lot. That's always going to be a given, but yeah, I suppose if there's anything further to kind of leave off on, I feel like there's an element that's kind of calling to me about um, almost like what do we incentivize or what do we value in our environment? Is kind of getting more philosophical or more um, sort of psychological in the sense of like um, really looking at the organism self and asking how do we want to interact with the greater environment? Uh, so how do we want to use our energy resource in a way that is impactful and meaningful? Um, So yeah, I think to me that kind of goes with maybe what I would call orientation or alignment or a moral stance or a principle of conduct where I would say the underlying goal is for greater coherence to take that which is fragmented and to make it whole and healed versus attempting to decohere or destabilize something. Um, so yeah, I think that's an important contingency of sort of motives or what we idolize, what we should idolize, how to seek stability, um, morally speaking, as an organism in the ecosystem. Because I guess you have to kind of think morally a little bit about how you relate to other organisms within your environment. We have to habitate in our habitat. Um, Otherwise, there's problems, right? So
Right. Because, I mean, we also have to take care of the environment, you know, hopefully at least as much as the amount of damage that we're doing, like how paper companies, even though they cut down a lot of trees, they have to replant, the same number of trees in order to keep that, paper going, uh, both in terms of tree paper and money paper, uh, as well as recycling, because, we don't want that, uh, out there. I mean, there's already so much out there. We don't need to be adding to it. We already know about, the great, the trash. What is it called? The Great Trash Patch or something? The garbage patch?
ocean, it's basically almost like an island at this point, where it's like just a cyclical whirlpool, and like it's between like the North America or something and
It's
Europe, I think, where it's
just so much plastic and trash, dude. So much. Like, I'll,
yeah,
I'll throw some pictures up, if I remember. Uh, if not, definitely just look it up. It's crazy.
yeah,
But yeah,
and you have to really think. I was just gonna say, I guess to me, if you're any sort of a moral being, you look at that and you feel something deep. You feel something moving when you see just how kind of disrespectful, I guess, like we treat the greater environment. And we live in the environment, and we have to like maybe admire somewhat what the environment provides for us, in our abiotic interactions. So um, it just kind of would reflect good on us people to really consider a lot about what we're doing, and um, how to heal the world. Yeah, I mean, in a sense, one step at a time. And often that can really come from healing the self. If I've learned anything, a working organism is an organism that is in alignment with their motivations and goals. And so I guess I would say stability kind of stems outward. So if you're a stable organism, that's kind of hopefully going to reflect in your immediate and overall environment. If you're an unstable organism, that probably will reflect in the kinds of energy you emit.
Mm-hmm.
And you know, something worth considering is that each part of us, each being has some interaction that they may not fully understand yet. That sort of ripple effect almost, where your actions actually have meaning. Um, and so, yeah, the ultimate question: are you going to stabilize or are you going to destabilize? I guess I would say seek stability. Um, it's with it's just our nature. I think it's just what we should be focused on if we are
Mm-hmm.
focused on anything.
Just real quick, I also wanted to bring this up, kind of going back to kind of talking about like that garbage patch in the ocean and like habitat destructions. Real quick, Alex, what's like one of the most beautiful things that you can find in the ocean?
Oh, I really love sea turtles. I like turtles.
I mean like its own ecosystem.
Oh, like an ecosystem within the ocean.
Yes.
Mm. I think it's kind of cool with like the coral reef. I mean, I had a
Yes.
whole project on coral reefs in high school. I think
And coral
there's a
reefs are
whole.
really cool and beautiful, right?
Yeah, I remember. Yeah, it was fun because I was able to do a whole class trip, and there was that involved, and yeah, it was a fun time. Um, Learned a lot, but
Well,
yeah.
due to us and our actions like overfishing and pollution and raising temperatures with global warming, uh,
Mhm.
we're looking at coral reefs totally disappearing by anywhere between 2045 to 2100.
Yeah, I remember literally like,
S-
it was
s-
a very real
Sorry,
thing.
could you repeat what you just said? You cut out.
Oh, sure. Yeah, no problem. So yeah, I remember actually what you were talking about back in high school, where they were mentioning the death of the coral reefs within, given short time frames. Um, so yeah, I mean, this has kind of been an ongoing sort of problem, and I think a lot of this could be sort of chalked up to what we would call conscientiousness, maybe, or like overall awareness, um, and just kind of thinking about the this sort of, I guess, highly aware people are kind of naturally a little bit more involved in their environment, maybe, if that makes sense. Whereas you can understand a more narrow-minded, unaware person might not really be thinking too hard about their ecology, their environment. But whether you think about it or not, it's still relevant. I would put it that way. Even if you don't think it's relevant, it's still kind of relevant.
Well, we can start and restore coral reefs, which is good. So at least there's conservation for that. It's just I just think for stuff in the ocean, it's harder to have conservation efforts for that.
Yeah. Yeah.
Hey, stop knocking my stuff down. Come on. What you doing? Well, always good to just keep in mind uh, about your surrounding environment and your impact on it. Make sure you just know about your environment, plan ahead.
Mhm.
You use the big brain that we got.
If I had any other sort of guidance to, I would hope that people could start from a very simple place. Because I remember ecology is this big, grandiose thing, and if you look at the whole thing, you're going to be like, okay, I don't want to learn more. This is too much.
Right.
So start, you know, I would recommend first principles. Good to start from first principles, and really think about maybe just the organism. Don't focus too much on the environment. You can think about the environment, but just think about the organism first. And then as you get comfortable with the organism, well, then you can start to branch out to the environment. There's a sort of natural progression to that, I think. Um, and I do think it's a proper way to think about the stability coming from the self. And I think that's a good point to sort of look at is yeah, we kind of choose. Well, again, we have freedom of choice, freedom of will, and so we can take actions that stabilize, and we can take actions that amplify. And I would say I'm kind of yeah circling the same point, but yeah, I would say in order to have a stable environment and a stable world, it has to start from the organism, the individual, or it should
And
be.
right. And uh, for those that are like maybe not too interested in the organisms but have interest in ecology, you can kind of take a look at the landscape uh, aspect of ecology, and you can kind of see like how pH levels in soil kind of affect the environment, and like how the rain and pollution affects all of that. There's
Yeah.
just a lot of different facets of it that you can look at.
And I
Yeah.
suppose that at the core of this, it's all for better understanding. And yeah, it's kind of creating a framework of knowledge that we can move from a place of having better models. Uh, yeah, that's kind of at the end of it, I guess. Um,
That's why we study it. That's why we got
yeah.
people for it. Better understanding, and we have a better way to make better choices, hopefully.
Yeah, and I maybe want to talk again a little bit about like maybe alignment or orientation because I guess for me it's kind of straightforward as seeking stability, but some people might, they have a lot of different methodologies for doing many different things. Um, but it is sort of, does your actions align with stability seeking action, or is it actions that align with more of those destabilizing forces? To reiterate again, that's why morality is just so dang relevant. Yeah, yeah, because we're talking about behavioral science almost at this point, sociology and behavioral science, and how if you have the stable and unstable actors or agents within a system, you get enough of a type of being, and it does affect the populace and the community. So yeah, I mean, yeah.
All right. Well, I think that'll about do it for this episode of the Afterburners. So, with that, thank you everybody so much for stopping by and listening. If you did like it, go ahead, leave a like. If you want to stay up to date with Afterthoughts and Afterburner episodes, go ahead and subscribe and hit that little bell, because that's what cool people do, right, Alex?
Only cool people
Yeah.
hit like and subscribe.
If you care about the ecosystem, you'll like, subscribe, and hit that bell. If you have any comments, go ahead and leave them, I guess. We'll try to read them. If you have any questions or fan art or any sort of unique viruses, go ahead and feel free to send them Alex's way or at snazzyyogi@gmail.com. That's in the description. As well as links to all of our other hosts and our channels and all that jazz. But yeah, thank you everybody so much for watching. Alex, any closing words?
Love y'all. Appreciate y'all.
I'm sure they all love you too, Alex. All right, thank you everybody. You have a good one. See you next time. Bye.